Hey, I want to talk in this brief podcast about what's called the Adams-OnisTreaty. The book um, it calls it the Florida Treaty. I guess they didn't want to get into too much detail, but I'm going to get into a little bit more detail. Ooh, I want to hide myself. Um, so here's the deal. By 1819, there's a lot of tension between the United States and Spain. Remember Spain? Let me see if I can find that other. Yeah, let me share that. I think you can see that screen. Remember, at this point, Spain, before 1819, Spain controls Florida. They control what's now the lower parts of Mississippi and Alabama, the beautiful area, Destin, if you ever go swimming there, the Redneck Riviera, and then of course Texas. And what happens is that the Americans, especially on the East Coast in Florida, they're getting angry because slaves from Georgia are running away to Florida, and they're actually intermarrying into Indian tribes, the Seminole tribes especially. And so there's a big demand in the U.S. For the U.S. to either capture or to buy Florida from Spain because they want Americans, especially in Georgia, they want to shut off this escape route for slaves, and they want to make Florida part of the U.S. And there's also questions about what the heck is the border between Texas and Louisiana. I talk about this in the podcast. It's very unclear what the border was. There's a creation of what's called the neutral ground, and it's just really, really fuzzy. And it's causing all kinds of tension. It's causing all kinds of tension. And finally, the Spanish government and the American government, they get together and they say, okay, let's figure this out. And the Spanish can kind of read the handwriting on the wall. So what happens is that, let me, no, that's not what I want. That's not what I want. Sorry about this, folks. It's like I'm in the class. Okay. So instead of watching me in the class, you can watch me on Zoom. Okay, so here's what happens by 1819. You have a treaty that's signed between Spain and the United States. I'm not going to go into detail. I won't test you on this, but just Florida becomes in this southern tier of the Florida panhandle that stretches all the way to Louisiana. That becomes part of the United States. So this escape route for slaves is closed, which is quite tragic. Now, the other aspect of this treaty, the 1819 treaty, is that the boundary between Texas and Louisiana is set. It's set at the Sabine River to the east, and then the Red River to the north. And that's the border between Texas and Oklahoma, the Red River. If you're a football fan, you know that the Texas-Oklahoma game is called the Red River Rivalry. That's because the Red River is the border between Texas and Oklahoma. So for Texas, the significant aspect of the Adams-Onis Treaty is there's finally now a border, a recognized border between Texas and Louisiana. It had always been fuzzy until 1819, but after 1819, it is delineated as the Sabine River, which is today, to the east. That's the border with Louisiana. And then in northeast Texas, heading west, it's the Red River, becomes the border between Texas and Oklahoma. So this is a significant moment in Texas history because we start to see the outline of Texas that's so familiar to us today. We start to see it taking shape, especially in East Texas and Northeast Texas. So that's the significance of the Adams-Onis Treaty in 1819. As Forget the Alamo book mentions, there's anger among some Texans and some Americans about this border. They think Texas has gotten ripped off, but you know what? That's a little bit too much detail for this course. The big thing I want you to know is the significance of 1819, Adams-Onis, the borders of East and Northeast Texas are clarified. Sabine River becomes the border between Texas and Louisiana, and the Red River between Texas and what's now Oklahoma. And I want you to know that you'll be tested on that border and the Adams-OnisTreaty